Hello, this is Chucky, one of the photographers at Your Next Photo, and today I want to do a quick review on the 24 to 85 Nikon. It is a variable aperture lens. It is pretty sharp from what I see, just to kind of give you a little bit of a spoiler there, but I just wanted to know what a $200 lens on the used market that is, how well this would mate up to the Nikon D850. So let's jump right in. First, I want to look at the dreaded brick wall picture. This was shot at 24 millimeters, as you can see, at f3.5, and the ISO was 1000. Now, the reason why these are pretty high ISO is because I was shooting this when the sun was going down. Let's jump to the 1:1, and you can see here that it is pretty sharp right in the center. Going to move it around with this tool right here. So all along the center, in the center crop, as you can see, leaves really sharp looking, and all the textures, as you can see, are very sharp. So let's move out to what they call the APS-C crop over here. Still really sharp right along in here. You can see the blades of grass right in here, so the APS-C APS-C crop is still really good all throughout the leaves right there and the grass. I'm going to take a little bit of time on this 24 because sometimes some of these lenses struggle with the wide angle crispness. Now let's go all the way to the edges right over here, and as you can see, this is where it starts to get just a tiny bit softer over in there. So I would say this would be a good lens to use for a portrait. We'll look at it at the 85, but part of this out of focus is because of the real shallow depth of field. So really all we can do is go to the sides right here. Still pretty sharp, but it is starting to get a little bit soft right in here. You can still see the blades of grass real sharp here, but then it softens up just a tiny bit. Let's zoom out and look at the little pin cushioning that it is doing. I am going to go to the bottom right here where we have the profile corrections right here. I'm going to turn the profile corrections on, and as you can see, the vignetting goes away and it starts to look really, really nice. So I am going to jump on over to the 35 millimeter here. As you can see, 35 millimeter, now the variable aperture is kicking in at 4.0. It is still 1000 ISO, but this is 35 millimeters. I am going to brighten this up just a tiny bit. The sun was going down, like I said, so I'm going to brighten this up just a tiny bit so that you can see this. Jump right into the 1:1 and go in the center. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Now you can see this is really sharp at 35 millimeter, and then as we go over to the edges, once again starts to suffer a little tiny bit of softening over here on the right hand side as well. But in the APS-C crop and the actual center, very, very sharp. I'm going to zoom out, and then I'm going to bring it down and do the profile correction and see how much pin cushioning that we have. Just a tiny bit, and of course the vignetting goes away. Jump on over to the 50 millimeter. Once again, I'm going to brighten this up right in here, as you can see. Zoom into 1:1, and not quite as sharp as it starts getting to the edge on the 50 millimeter, but in the center still very sharp with all the different textures, good contrast, good textures all the way through. Leaves look good, the grass looks really good. So we have a little bit more softening in the 50 millimeter range. Jump on over to the 70 millimeter range, zoom on out, and then boost the exposure once again. Do the 1:1 zoom. Let's take a look at the center. Still very sharp lens all the way through this in the center. As we start to get to the sides, a little bit of smearing, just a tiny bit of smearing as it starts to get out to the edges. Zoom out here. Let's take a look at how much profile correction is needed. A little bit of pin cushioning fixes that right up. As you can see, it's 4.5 in the aperture now at 70 millimeters, so it's looking really good. Finally, let's go to the 85 millimeter. Gonna zoom. Actually, let's stay zoomed out and go to the exposure right here, and then we're gonna zoom in and then look at it, and it is very crisp here. And this is a kit lens, so it's really nice in the APS-C crop. As we start going to the edges, 85, just a tiny bit soft. I think it's a little bit better than the 50 and the 75, but it would be a great portrait lens to be able to. On the right hand side, it seems to be smearing just a tiny bit more. I'm pretty sure that I was flat with the wall there, but I'm going to jump on over and let's take a look at the bokeh in the next piece right here. Let's take a look there. I'm going to zoom out right there. It's actually got pretty nice creamy bokeh right in here. Looks pretty nice. Let's take the shadows up just a little bit so that you can start seeing some of the background a little bit more and some more of the branches. Let's zoom into 1:1. Let's take a look at that. Very sharp on the branches where I was focused, and look at that smooth background. It is a nice, not jittery looking background. It is a pretty smooth background there, so I'm liking what I'm seeing there. Let's jump on over to the stop sign. I am going to go to the full resolution here, and then I'm going to bring up the shadows just a tiny bit to just show you what this lens is capable of. I'm going to take the highlights back just a tiny bit in the background. Then I'm going to zoom 1:1 here. Let's take a look at that. Very sharp indeed. You can see all of what this stop sign is made of. The only thing that I see right here though, because I was shooting into the sun, is a little bit of chromatic aberration. So I'm going to go down. I'm going to fix the profile correction, but now I'm going to hit the remove chromatic aberration, and let's see what it does. As you can see, it took all the chromatic aberration completely out. So let's zoom out again. It's looking really good now, real sharp in the center, has some nice bokeh in the back. Now I'm going to jump on over. Let's take a look at the dynamic range here. This is a really dark photo in the silhouette right there, but as you can see, some really great looking detail in the clouds. I'm liking the lighting in there. I'm going to zoom back out again. I'm going to put a little bit of shadows back into this so that you can start seeing some of the cars in there without disrupting the color too much. But it's looking nice. Zoom in on the trees right there. Don't really see a whole lot of chromatic aberration over there. Just a little bit of haloing in some of the areas. So if we just use that chromatic aberration, remove it right there, it takes a lot of that out. So it's looking really good. So far I would say lens really sharp in the center. Going to give us one last look at this. Let's take a look at this zoomed out. This is f5.6 1600 ISO. As we zoom in there, look at that sharpness and crispness inside this fire hydrant. I'm going to jump on over to the 3200 version of this. It's good, has a little bit of noise in it, but it's still very sharp. So for a $200 used lens, this 24-85, really sharp. If you don't mind just a little bit of softening on the edges, I think it would make a great 85mm portrait lens, because you don't have to worry about the sharpness along the edges, because most of the time you want to have that nice softness all around. So this is Chucky from Your Next Photo. Stay tuned for my next video. That one's going to be on the Tamron 70-200 G1 versus the G2 on the Nikon D850. Thanks. Give me a thumbs up, give me a like, and visit our Facebook site at Your Next Photo. Thanks. Cheers.